And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, October 31st. Happy Halloween. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following, make sure to click on the Super Chat button in the chat. This will help create a super chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. The other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We are going to preview tonight's game between the Houston Texans and the New York Jets. Two teams heading in different directions. We'll get into that. And then we'll get into a bunch of recaps. We'll recap the Falcons-Buccaneers game in the second part of the show. The Falcons picking up a win there. We'll talk about it as the Buccaneers continue to lose games. We'll get into all that. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about Tua and his return to the field, how he did, and we'll talk about the game because the Dolphins ended up losing to the Cardinals. So even with Tua coming back, Dolphins weren't able to get a win. Then we'll get into the Bengals-Eagles game, Eagles winning 37-17, and then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about the Chiefs and their win over the Raiders. So let's get into the first topic now, which is discussing Texans-Jets. So, if you remember last year, it was late in the season. Zach Wilson was the quarterback, and the Jets won that game, and they won pretty handily. It was a bad weather game, and the Jets won that game. I believe the score was 31-7, but I just want to double check just to make sure that that's what the score was. But yeah, it was kind of a surprising game. Oh, 30-6. 30-6. I was close. But, yeah, 30-6 was the final score. You had Zach Wilson playing well in that game. The defense shut down C.J.Stroud in that offense. And now you flash forward, or you fast forward to now, and the Texans right now, they got one of the best records in football. They're 6-2. They're playing some good football. And the Jets, with all the changes and Aaron Rodgers coming back, they find themselves at 2-6. And what's interesting about this game tonight is the fact that the Jets are favored. Right now they are 2-point favorites in this game. And you're probably sitting there going, how is that even possible? How is that possible? Well, I think one of the main things is it's the Aaron Rodgers effect. But you look at these two teams, the records are not close, and the Jets, they've struggled this year, and the defense is worse than last year. They're a team that has struggled to stop the run, and just the team in general, they are a team that gets heavily penalized for many different things. So it is interesting. And it does make me pause and say, well, what should I do with this game tonight? Well, I've kept picking the Jets. I keep picking the Jets every week, and they keep disappointing me. So, and after this loss to the Patriots, I'm pretty much off. I'm off the train. I'm off of it. And you know what's going to end up happening? They'll probably just start winning games and look like the team that I was saying they could be before the season started. But I guess that's what I got to do for them to wake up. But I'm still going to take the Texans tonight because even though, and this is probably the other reason too why the Jets are favored, is because they're down two wideouts in this game. And that is no Nico Collins. He'll be back next week. And now there's no Stephon Diggs. Unfortunately, he's out for the year with a torn ACL. So your top wideout going into this game is Tank Dell. And you got John Mechie on the team, Xavier Hutchinson. They do have depth at the wide receiver position. But I think for me, tonight is once again going to be a Joe Mixon game. The Texans are going to have to rely upon Joe Mixon because the Jets are not good against the run. They're not. And the Texans can run the football. Now that they got Joe Mixon back, and since he's come back, he's been awesome. Picked up right where he left off when he got hurt in week 2 and missed those weeks. He's been great. And I think that's going to continue in this game. And I just think, the Texans, they have an advantage at quarterback right now. They got the advantage when it comes to the head coach. I just think ultimately, the Jets are going to be 2-7 after this game tonight. Now, if the Jets end up winning this game, will I be surprised? No. I will not be surprised. Nothing surprises me. Nothing surprises me anymore. I might be capping a little bit, but certain things don't surprise me. Let's say that. Certain things. I like to contradict myself a lot. But yeah, certain things won't surprise me. If the Jets go out there and they win tonight and the defense gets to C.J.Stroud and they sack him 5 times and, they win 27 to 17 or something, yeah, I mean, it's not going to surprise me. Because this team is talented. But how people have put it in the media, they have talent. They're talented, but they're not a team. Or however they put it. They got talent, but they're not a team. That's what they are. They have a collection of talent, but they are not a team. And that is one of the things that, I talked about going into the season is just, mainly it comes with coaching. Because coaching was a big reason why I was like, yeah, you're taking a risk here. And that's one of the main reasons why the Jets are in the position that they're in right now. And, you look at Aaron Rodgers this season, and has he been the MVP the 4-time MVP? No. But you look at his numbers. By the end of the night, he's going to have over 2,000 passing yards, 12 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. Is it great? No. But is it bad? Absolutely not. He hasn't been horrendous this year. There have been moments. The 3-pick game against the Vikings was not good, but they still had a chance to win that game. And you know what? When you look at a lot of the games that the Jets lost, outside of the 49ers game, the Jets could have won each of the games. The Steelers, I know they hung 37 on them, but the Jets were up 15-6 in that game. Even, despite him throwing 3 interceptions, the Jets had an opportunity to go down the field against the Vikings in London and beat them. It's just, there are other components to this. The defense is not as good, and I don't know what happened to Greg Zuerlein, but he hasn't been good either. He's been missing kicks in crucial moments. So, it's a mess of a season for the Jets, and I don't know where they go from here after this year. I really don't. Does Rodgers retire? Do they take a quarterback? Right now, if the season ends today, they're picking in the top 10. So, I really don't know. But some of the things that they did this offseason, and this was pointed out, is some of the rotational players that they let go. Some of the other guys on the defense they let go. Letting Bryce Huff go, even though some Jet fans that I've talked to say he wasn't as good as people had thought. But you let him go. You traded John Franklin Myers to the Broncos. That was another trade that I think hurt them. There were guys that on this defensive line that they just, let go or traded, and, it ended up costing them right now. Hassan Reddick being out, they thought he was going to be a difference maker. We'll see. He didn't show up in the stat sheet against the Patriots, but, he's going to get more snaps as we move along here. But, you had that, and then you had Jermaine Johnson tearing his Achilles. It's just, the defense took a step back. And that's one of the big, that's the other thing. Like, I did not expect the defense to take a step back. I thought now you have Rodgers, you're going to have a better offense. I thought this defense was going to show up, and it really hasn't. It hasn't. So let's kind of run through the league rankings. So passing yards per game, Texans are 7th. Jets are 11th. Rushing yards per game, the Jets are actually 30th, even though Breece Hall has been making plays as of late, but it's in the passing game. Texans actually are 18th, averaging 118.9 rushing yards per game, but that also had to do with the fact that, Joe Mixon was out. So if Joe Mixon played every game, they wouldn't be 18th. They're going to continue to go up, especially after tonight, if the Jets' run defense doesn't show up, which it really hasn't all year. And then points per game, Jets are 25th, and the Texans are 14th. Then they're on the defensive side of the ball. Surprisingly, the Jets are second against the pass, giving up an average of 180 passing yards per game, and then the Texans are fourth, giving up an average of 188.1 passing yards per game. And then against the run, the Jets are 17th, and the Texans are 13th. Points allowed, Jets defense is 11th, and the Texans is 15th. You look at some. You're giving up 23 points to both the Vikings and the Bills. 37 to the Steelers, 25 to the Patriots. 10 to the Broncos. It's just they're a middle of the pack defense right now. And it's just I would have thought that against the run they'd be a little bit lower, but they're not. So but yeah, I just think they are they're going to struggle tonight. They are. So we'll see what happens. But even with the Jets being favored, I'm still going to take the Texans here. Like I said, certain things will not surprise me. If the Jets win, I'm not going to be like, wow, this is unreal. I did not see this coming. But I just think the Texans are going to rely upon Joe Mixon with them being shorthanded at receiver. They're going to, like I said, they'll get Nico Collins back most likely next week, which is huge. They're going to need him, especially with Diggs being out. But, yeah, I think you rely on Joe Mixon. You play good defense. You get after Aaron Rodgers, and I think the Texans ultimately get the win. They improve to 7-2, and the Jets would drop to 2-7. So I'm going to take the Texans. I'm going to say they win. I think it's going to be another – I think it's going to be close. I think it'll be close. I'm going to say they win 24-20. That'll be my final score there. Because the Texans, they really don't blow people out. They really don't. Against Jacksonville, it was a close game. Against the Colts the other day, it was close. They really don't blow people out. So, and it is a road game. Got to factor that in. But I just think they're the better team. So, I'm going to take the Texans, but we'll see what happens. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think. Who do you think wins this game tonight? Let me know in the comments. So, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we will discuss the Falcons-Buccaneers game. Falcons getting the win in that. So, we'll talk about that when we return from our first break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.